Despite having some of the toughest mask mandates and the most extreme protocols across the entire travel industry, the CDC recently recommended that people do not cruise. Cruise lines are clapping back, with the Cruise Line International Association, CLIA, issuing this statement. The decision by the CDC to raise the travel level for cruise is particularly perplexing, considering that cases identified on cruise ships consistently make up a very slim minority of the total population on board, far fewer than on land. And the majority of those cases are asymptomatic or mild in nature, posing little to no burden on medical resources on board or on shore. No setting can be immune from this virus, however. It is also the case that cruise provides one of the highest levels of demonstrated mitigation against the virus. Cruise ships offer a highly controlled environment with science-backed measures, known testing and vaccination levels far above other venues or modes of transportation and travel, and significantly lower incidence rates than land. While we are disappointed and disagree with the decision to single out the cruise industry, an industry that continues to go above and beyond compared to other sectors, CLIA and our ocean-going cruise line members remain committed to working collaboratively with the CDC in the interest of public health and safety. The cruise industry as a whole was quick to pivot and implement even tougher measures to help combat COVID. I'll be taking you through some of the recent changes that have been made, which are expected to be in place until at least the end of January, probably extended beyond that. Just a quick disclaimer. The information I'm about to provide is correct at the time of recording and applies to sailings from the US only. All rules, restrictions, protocols, and terms of service are subject to change at any time. You can check with your individual cruise line for specific details relevant to your sailing. In the description below, I have included links to the COVID protocols for the cruise lines mentioned. The information is relevant only to your time on board. Let's start with everyone's favourite mouse, Disney Cruise Lines. Along with all the other cruise lines, Disney is committed to reducing guest capacity at this time. Whilst none of the cruise lines mention what the capacity levels are on their websites, it's been reported that Disney is sailing at or below 50% capacity. All guests aged 2 and over must wear masks at all times when indoors on the cruise ship, unless actively eating or drinking, or in your stateroom. Masks are not required outdoors on board the ship. Disney's Navigator app has been updated to include some new socially distant and hygiene-promoting features. Guest services live chat, virtual disembarkation queues, digital receipts and gratuities, and a mandatory emergency drill. Now, this is something that's become quite standard across the cruise industry. Instead of everybody on the ship moving to the muster station at the same time, you instead can attend the muster at your leisure between boarding and ship departure. It is important that you do definitely go to your muster station before the ship departs. They'll usually do last calls around 30 minutes before. If there's any passengers that have not completed this process, the ship will not sail. Norwegian cruises do not permit any unvaccinated guests to travel. Through to the end of January, all guests will be tested at the port, an expense paid for by Norwegian Cruise Lines. And similar to Disney, Norwegian cruises require you be masked up at all times indoor, except when you're in individual stateroom or when actively eating or drinking. They do also state that you do not need to wear a mask while seated at your dining table. NCL also require that you wear your mask outdoors if you cannot maintain a safe social distance of 6 feet from others. Reports are suggesting that NCL ships are sailing at approximately 60% capacity. Norwegian Cruise Lines don't actually make any reference towards their muster process. However, in collaboration with Royal Caribbean, Norwegian Cruise Lines co-developed the Muster 2.0 processes. This is the process where you will do your muster in smaller groups instead of everyone attending at one time. So it would be extremely unlikely, considering they co-developed it, that they wouldn't actually be using it. So I'd say it's safe to assume that that process is in place also. Princess Cruises. Princess have stated that their current protocols will be in place until the end of March. Similar to Norwegian Cruise Lines, all guests must be fully vaccinated, no exceptions. Masks are required at all times indoors and outdoors when social distancing cannot be maintained. Exceptions are made whilst actively eating or drinking, when receiving spa treatments to the face, when in the pool, spa, sauna, or somewhere else that your mask may get wet, and in your own cabin when with your own travel party. Princess have a really impressive contactless portfolio through their Ocean Medallion wearable tech. This device goes on your wrist and it can be used for contactless payments, and in conjunction with the mobile app, you can even order different products to be delivered to you anywhere on the ship. It's not just food or drink. If you forgot your sunscreen and you're laying out by the pool, you can purchase and order that sunscreen, or you could request extra towels even. There is no delivery or service charges. You simply just pay for any goods at the same price that you'd pay in the store. Most Princess cruises are reported to be sailing at 50% or less. However, there are reports out of Los Angeles that the inaugural sailing of Majestic Princess was sailing at around 60% capacity. Carnival's public COVID protocols are really complex to digest because that's dependent on the port that you'll be sailing from, or the home port, and also the destination ports that you'll be visiting. In short, all guests over the age of 2 must wear masks at all times indoors unless actively eating or drinking, or in your individual stateroom with your immediate travel party. Masks should also be worn outdoors where physical distancing cannot be maintained. Carnival state that physical distancing is 6 feet or less for unvaccinated guests and 3 feet or less for vaccinated guests. All guests 12 and over are required to be vaccinated. Carnival are a bit unique in that they do accept exemptions for religious or medical reasons. However, these exceptions are very, very few and far between. Priority for exemptions is given to those who are vaccine ineligible. That means children. The number of unvaccinated guests must be below 5% of the total guest count. Carnival have reopened their youth clubs. However, youth clubs are only available to vaccinated guests. And Carnival have made additional protocols when it comes to casinos. For the immediate future, smoking is now prohibited in the casino. This is not expected to be a permanent change. The casino bar will remain open, but 2 will remain non-smoking, and the seats in the casino are reserved for players only. In an effort to improve social distancing, Carnival have enabled a virtual queuing system for their guest services desk and the shore excursion team. You can simply reserve your spot using the mobile app and you'll be notified when it's time to return to the desk. In November, Carnival stated that by the end of December, they would expect their sailing capacity to be 65%. Now, this statement was released before the Omicron variant derailed everything. Some reports from before Christmas show that Carnival probably has the highest capacity out of all the cruise lines. Royal Caribbean. Similar to Carnival, Royal's website lists out different protocols depending on your home port. However, Royal make it a little bit easier to digest. When you go into their website, you'll simply select your home port from the drop-down and the protocols will be listed there. Since I'm sailing with Royal Caribbean in just a few days from the port of Los Angeles, that's the port I've used to gather the information for the purposes of this video. As with all the cruise lines, please just double check their protocols before you sail because these are changing so quickly. Unvaccinated children between the ages of 2 and 11 will be permitted on board providing they have a negative test result. Masks are required for all guests 2 and over, and those masks must be worn at all times indoors unless actively eating or drinking or while you're in your individual stateroom. Royal Caribbean also asks that you do wear masks when outside in a crowded setting. Masks are not required in the pool, spa, or any other areas where the mask may get wet. Any parties travelling with someone that's unvaccinated will have a designated area in the main dining room and you will be assigned to early dining only. The My Time dining option is not available to any party travelling with someone that's unvaccinated. Some of the specialty restaurants are also designated vaccine only, as are some of the venues on board the ship. If you and your party are fully vaccinated, you will be given a wristband to wear and you will need to show that to enter any vaccinated required area of the ship. Similar to Carnival, Royal Caribbean also stated that they would expect their capacity to be at 65% by the end of December, and just like Carnival, they made that assertion before the Omicron variant hit. That has likely changed. I've heard stories of some ships only being at 25% capacity. Youth clubs have reopened on Royal Caribbean, however you do need to reserve this to ensure social distancing, but it does seem that vaccinations may not be required at this time. Just to talk about the cruising industry in general at the moment, there is no requirement from the major large cruise lines for booster shots. However, some of the smaller cruise lines in Europe, specifically in the UK, Cunard, P&O, as well as some of the more luxury lines, are requesting booster shots. So I think it's only a matter of time before that becomes a requirement for pretty much every cruise line. If you are traveling on a cruise at this time, of course the recommendation is always, if you're flying, to fly in at least the day before. There are lots of reports of cancelled flights, particularly in the US at the moment. This is due to staffing shortages caused by COVID. For that reason, I highly recommend that you travel to possibly 3 days before the cruise, just in case there are any delays and you're stuck at the airport for a day. This way, you're more likely to make sure that you get to the cruise on time. Testing centres are filling up and tests are taking longer to return. If you are fully vaccinated and you're eligible to take the PCR test, I highly recommend doing the at-home test, which are proctored. That means you're observed via your webcam administering the test and checking the results. Double check that your cruise line does permit those types of tests and make sure you order those in plenty of time for your cruise. Now, the expiration dates on some of these tests are expired. However, the CDC has issued an order to extend those expiration dates at least 3 and in some cases up to 12 months. So even if it's showing expired, the chances are you are still permitted to take that test and it will count as a valid test result. Be aware that while you're actually cruising, some of the activities planned may be subject to change. There are reports of entertainment being cancelled on cruise ships as the entertainers are coming down with COVID. If one entertainer comes down, the chances are that entire close group of entertainers will all be put into quarantine and any production shows will be cancelled until their quarantine window has been completed. Now, of course, there are plenty of entertainers on board. They will make sure that there's plenty of entertainment for you. The problem may, of course, be that some of the other crew, some of the waiters and servers may get sick, so you might find that your server does change during the cruise. There have been reports that Royal Caribbean have been sailing without the Windjammer being open for dinner. This is likely due to staff shortages as well, so just be prepared to be flexible, to be fluid with your cruise. You'll still have a great time, but things are subject to change. The other thing that you may be hearing through the media is that certain ports are denying cruise ships entry. Whilst there is some truth here, it does depend on the case rates on board and the local laws in that jurisdiction. If a certain port is not going to accept your ship, the team will be working tirelessly to find an alternative plan for you. You'll be notified of what the new arrangement is. You'll be refunded for any shore excursions that you've booked through the cruise line. And if they cannot find an alternative port, most of the cruise lines are offering an onboard credit or some partial refund for the inconvenience caused. As I mentioned earlier, I'm actually due to sail in the next 3 days, just a 3-day cruise, so I'll be sure to let you know of any other updates I find whilst on board. Other than that, if you do have a cruise planned, happy cruising. If you're a bit uncomfortable with cruising just now, I completely understand. I'll just be honest, I've done 2 cruises so far since the industry opened up. I personally feel very comfortable on the cruises because of the level of testing and the low number of unvaccinated people that are on board. Also, the cases, although it sounds like a lot, although the media are reporting it to be a lot, the case rates are actually extremely low compared to the land-based case rates when you look at this as a percentage. The ships are very quick to quarantine anyone who does test positive. They are isolated in a separate deck on the ship. That being said, if you are going to travel, you do run the risk of perhaps contracting COVID. If you do feel unwell, do seek medical assistance. Usually this will be covered. You can make sure that you have traveler's insurance just in case. But be prepared with some activities. Take a puzzle book, take some board games, a deck of cards, take something to keep yourself entertained. Most cruise lines will give you the Wi-Fi package, the top Wi-Fi package, so that you can stream Netflix or stream shows on the internet, and will allow you to contact your family and friends back home if need be. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. If you've got any questions, concerns about cruising during COVID, or perhaps you even have travelled during COVID and you want to tell me your experience, let me know in the comments below. If you want to see more content like this, definitely subscribe and set your notifications to be notified next time I drop a video.